Hello everyone, it's Dylan from Yu-Gi-Oh! Everything, and welcome back to another theory video. Wow, I have not made a theory video on this channel in a long time, and this one is definitely one of the more out there theories. Is it crazier than trying to put all the Yu-Gi-Oh! Shows on one continuous timeline? Maybe. Is it crazier than saying the final villain of GX predicted the events in the next 4 shows? Maybe. Is it crazier than saying Seto Kaiba was going to be the main villain of Arc 5? Probably. All I know is this is definitely one of my more out there theories, but I truly believe this could very well be the case. The theory we will be discussing is that Roku, a character from Yu-Gi-Oh! Zexal, is actually an older version, a much older version of, that's right, the one and only Yugi Moto. I know a few of you are probably baffled at the stupidity of this premise already, but I will do my best to lay out my reasonings as to why I believe this could be the case. You guys know me, I don't like to make theories unless I feel there is a decent amount of evidence to support my reasonings, and so, I hope you go into this theory with an open mind, and at the very least, hear out my reasonings, and of course, enjoy the video. Once again, I propose that Roku from Zexal is an older-aged Yugi Moto. Without further ado, let's begin. Since there might be some people watching who have not seen Zexal, I will fill you in real quick on who this Roku character is. His actual name in the Japanese version is Rokujiro Misawa, but I'm just going to refer to him as Roku since that is his English dub name, and it's basically just a shorter, easier to say version of his actual name. He debuts in episode 15, and is the only inhabitant of the Duel Lodge, which is located in a very obscure, secretive place atop the mountains of Heartland City. While not a major character, Roku is a decently recurring character throughout Zexal, and helps Yuma in his growth and development after he was battered in a duel by Kaito, or Kite in the dub. So, that is a little background on who Roku is, in case you forgot or in case you didn't watch Zexal. Now, the fun part. What makes me think this theory has any merit to it? I will start with what I perceive to be my least convincing arguments, and then move to my stronger arguments as the video progresses. For starters, let's just take a look at the setting Roku lives in. Roku lives in secrecy in a building littered with statues that he has apparently carved himself. These statues include very famous monsters from most likely the era that would have occurred when he was younger, including monsters used by Seto Kaiba, Joey Wheeler, Judayuki, and Yugi himself. Here is a list according to the Yu-Gi-Oh! Wikipedia of all the statue monsters that are visible to us. While it is very easy to be overwhelmed by the presence of all these awesome throwback monsters, let's take a step back and actually look at some other scenery going on in this scene. This is honestly something I didn't see until about my 15th time watching this scene, but notice the Millennium symbol on the pillars? This is the Eye of Wujat, which is basically the Millennium symbol that appears on all of the Millennium items. Hopefully I'm also saying that word right. I honestly have no idea how to pronounce it. The reason for this symbol being here never gets touched on, and I don't think we ever see this symbol at all throughout the rest of Zexal. So it's a little strange that the Eye of Wujat exists in this Duel Lodge, almost like the person that created this place or the person that inhabits it has a tie to the Millennium items and the ancient past. But let's move past that ancient, iconic Millennium symbol and move on to what actually happens next. Yuma is impressed with the statues, and since this is Yu-Gi-Oh!, Roku challenges him to a duel. The duel immediately begins by giving Yuma control of the Dark Magician and Dark Magician Girl, 2 of Yugi's monsters, while Roku took control of the Blue Eyes White Dragon and the Red Eyes Black Dragon. Then something really bizarre happens, as these monsters end up coming to life, and thus the monsters we all loved watching growing up are now actually on the field. But I think we all overlook at why and how these statues came to life. The official Yu-Gi-Oh! Wikia states that it was because of the AR duel system, but honestly, I don't buy that, mainly because this statement credits episode 15 as a reference source, but I tell you, I have watched episode 15 about 3 times over, and nowhere in this episode is it mentioned or hinted at that the AR system is responsible for bringing these legendary monsters to life. Also, if that was the case, can't anyone just craft a statue of the Winged Dragon of Ra, Obelisk, and then just use a field magic, and thanks to this system they'll be able to summon a legendary god card? I don't buy that this system brought these monsters to life. They come to life when Yuma again uses a field magic that quote-unquote releases the statue monsters, and then they get sent into this weird purple realm. Now, no, I'm not saying this is the Shadow Realm or a game of darkness per se, but it's an interesting color choice and setting to say the least, isn't it? Hell, even right after this setting kicks in, Roku says, "The true duel begins now," after laughing kind of sinisterly, and then literally traps Yuma inside the body of the Dark Magician. If that's not the beginning of a weird, strange game of darkness, I have no idea what is. So yes, I actually am proposing that somehow, some way, this duel was was some sort of shadow game. I'm also not sure how to explain how Roku would have invoked the power of these monsters, since obviously any connection with the Pharaoh, if this is in fact Yugi, would have been severed, but hey, we have seen weird, unexplained, supernatural things like this happen before. Dark-sided dimensions, anyone? Anyway, the duel continues with Roku trapping Yuma inside the Dark Magician's body and forces him to watch Dark Magician Girl take the full brunt of the Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon's attack. Then Roku continues to terrorize Yuma by splitting the Blue Eyes Ultimate back into 3 Blue Eyes with Fusion Cancel. At this point, Roku starts talking about how anyone would be terrified in this situation, which then leads him to talking about how the monsters have the same fear, and the big lesson in all of this is obviously that when you know the monster's thoughts, they'll answer you. Now where have we heard speeches like that over and over again?
真のブラックマジシャン使いの称号は私が得たも同然ですね。それはどうかな、パンドラ。貴様が真のブラックマジシャン使いなら聞こえるはずだぜ。主に裏切られ犠牲となったカードの魂の嘆きが。そんなもの聞こえませんね。That's right. Yami Yugi was very stern in dismissing Pandora as a true duelist because Pandora couldn't hear his Dark Magician's cries, among other things, like the chainsaws and cheating. But still, he also talked about in this duel and in so many other duels how important it is to connect with your monsters and to feel what they are feeling, and that's what makes you a true duelist. This is the literal core of Roku's lessons at the Duel Lodge to Yuma. But let's also think about the situation Roku put Yuma in. It's a very similar situation that Yugi once faced, isn't it? Yuma had to stare down the Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon to be able to feel the fear of his monsters and thus get over his beatdown and nervousness against Kaido. A duel that I always viewed as a big reckoning point for Yugi's character in Duel Monsters was when he had to stare down the Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon as well. The situation was a bit different since he had the duel won and Kaiba's life was on the line, but still, the Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon is a monster that is symbolic for growth and getting over your doubts, like Yugi and Yami were able to in the duels to follow. This was a huge step in their relationship and growth, and thus, Roku, wants it to be a huge step in reckoning for duelists that he sees fit. Also, since we are on the topic of Yugi and Duel Monsters, this wouldn't mess up my timeline proposal in theory at all. In my timeline, I guess that Zexal, which I feel is canon to Duel Monsters in GX, took place about 90 years after Duel Monsters ended. Well, if you change this 90 years to 60 years, which I think is a very reasonable change, especially considering how fast technology and society develops, then Yugi would be around 76 years old during Zexal. While we never get confirmation on Roku's age, I think it's very easy to see him be in that age range, so even from a timeline canon perspective, this theory doesn't break that at all. But anyway, I feel like a lot of what I presented so far hasn't been that concrete, so let's get to the real juice of this theory. With each new Yu-Gi-Oh show, we get a new summoning method. Yu-Gi-Oh! GX had fusions, Yu-Gi-Oh! 5Ds had synchros, Zexal XZs, so on and so forth. Not often do you see a character in these shows not use the new summoning method that corresponds with it. I mean, just to test, try to think of any character that never used a synchro in 5Ds, or a fusion in GX. Not easy, is it? I'm sure it's possible, although I can't think of any character from either that didn't use a fusion or synchro. But anyway, I'm getting off topic. Yu-Gi-Oh! Zexal introduced the Overlay Network, XZ's monsters, and all that fun stuff. But guess who is the only character in the entire anime that never once uses an XZ's monster? That's right, Roku. Kind of odd, isn't it? Almost like he wants to stay true to his past self and not conform to the new normalities of dueling. Well, actually, let's take a closer look at his deck. Besides his Duel Lodge deck, which is filled with nostalgic OG-era monsters, we also get a good look at his deck when he duels Yuma in episode 44. He ends up defeating Yuma again in this duel, but you want to know what cards he uses? Jack's Knight, Queen's Knight, and King's Knight. 3 cards made famous by, well, of course, Yugi. The only spell we see him use is Fusion, which is a card that Yugi has used before. Then again, most people have, so that one doesn't really count. Moreover, the trap card he uses in this duel is Mirror Force. I know Revolver in Yu-Gi-Oh! Vrains has recently gone crazy with Mirror Force, but still, besides Revolver, Yugi was the original Mirror Force player. Roku's real-life deck is filled with cards that belong to Yugi Moto. Coincidence? It could be, But there is one real icing on the cake moment, one card and one moment that I believe is so hard to chalk up to a pure coincidence. In fact, it's so subtle that I'm sure most people who have watched Zexal won't even know about this because it took me a few watches to even catch this. Roku and the others are trying to hold off the oncoming Baryons. We see all the characters quickly shown with their quote-unquote Trump monsters in front of them. Watch the scene and try to look at Roku's monster. This is from episode 124.
カオスの深淵をたっぷり見せてやる。俺のターンだ。私と師匠の連携の前では敵ではなかったようだな。
Did you see it? Roku is wielding the strongest warrior, Black Luster Soldier. Now, who made that card famous again?
魔王カードカオスの儀式。
カオスの儀式。何？
カオスソルジャー降臨。
あれが伝説の最強戦士。
カオスソルジャーの攻撃。カオスブレード。すげえ。あれが遊戯の切り札。最強の戦士。
That's right, Yugi Moto. In fact, this is a card so freaking linked to Yugi that Yami literally embodies it when he faces off against Zork in episode 218. He literally transforms into the Black Luster Soldier. You're telling me that the writers and staff had the opportunity to put any monster here, especially since these duels are barely shown. We literally see them shown once, and then the next time we see them, the duel is ending. They could have put any filler monster, any XZ's monster, and they decide to give Roku the Black Luster Soldier. By coincidence? Hell, if this is a coincidence, then there are a lot of coincidences when it comes to the similarities between Yugi and Roku. No, I truly think this was done purposely and intentionally to try and hint at some kind of connection between these two characters. I mean, this card is so rare, we don't even see it when Dimitri uses Yugi's copy deck in GX. We see Black Luster Soldier of the Envoy, but not this card. In fact, the only time we see Black Luster Soldier ever outside of Duel Monsters is when Yugi uses it when he faces off against Judai in Season 4. That's it. Maybe besides Dark Magician, there aren't many cards you can easily put ahead of this one in terms of being linked to Yugi Moto. Now, I guess the only unanswered question for this, which I'm sure a lot of you are probably thinking, is why would you change your entire name and live in secrecy if this actually is Yugi? And the only thing I can think of there is maybe he didn't like the attention. Yugi never seemed like a boastful character, honestly, and was badgered by people who wanted to duel him on multiple occasions throughout Duel Monsters. So, as a legend, he decided to change his entire persona, identity, name, and live in seclusion, only to train the best duelists that came to his lodge. He also looks kind of similar to Grandpa Moto, right? I can't be the only one thinking that. I guess that's a theory in a theory, though. The real reason for the identity change, if this is in fact Yugi, is a bit of a mystery. But between the scarily identical deck lists, including the fact that Roku wields the legendary warrior Black Luster Soldier, the Duel Lodge being filled with the original legendary monster statues and Millennium symbols, and the fact that Roku can literally bring these statues to life and trap his opponent inside these monsters to teach them a lesson that was so often preached by Yugi, are the main reasons why I believe Roku from Zexal is actually Yugi Moto. But hey, that's just a theory. A Yugioh theory. I'm sorry. I get like 50 comments every theory of people asking me to do that, so I felt it was necessary. I do apologize. In all seriousness, though, guys, that does conclude my theory video, so please let me know what you thought of this down below. I really hope you enjoyed it. I am giving a big shout out to Alessio Rando for emailing me about this theory a few months ago. I always thought that Roku was maybe a descendant of Yugi, but once he planted this idea in my head, I really ran with it, and it was the main inspiration for me to make this, so big shout out to him. But now I want to hear from all of you. Again, I hope you all enjoyed the video, and hopefully I was able to maybe convince some of you that this at the very least might have a little bit of merit behind it. Either way, I hope you enjoyed the video, and I can't wait to discuss this further with all of you. Be sure to check out my channel for more Yu-Gi-Oh! Anime content. Thank you all so much for watching, thank you for the support, and I hope you have an amazing day. 君が胸に抱き続ける心